Welcome to America's Heroes Group.
Welcome back to America's Heroes Group, this time with our roundtable with our sponsor and our partner, the RHF. Today is Saturday, October 7th, 2023. October is Breast Cancer, Mental Health, National Disability, and Domestic Violence Awareness Month. Our host is Kelley. I'm Sean Claiborne, the co-host. Our executive producer is Glenda Smith. Our digital media producer is Ivan Ortega of Scouts Arnold Productions. And we have with us again our partner, Darren Jeffrey, is a founding board member of RHF and also the original course creator builder for the TV show American Ninja Warrior that aired on NBC. He's also brought us a great panelist, and that is our next distinguished guest. He's a friend of our partner, the Rick Herrmann Foundation. He specializes in using video games and television shows to create custom mental health solutions for his clients. He received his bachelor's degree in social work at North Carolina Agricultural and Technical State University and his master's at Clark Atlanta before returning back to NCA&T State to get his doctorate at the university's program of rehabilitation, counseling, and counselor education. He is said to have achieved some unorthodox and if not groundbreaking success in using technology to heal people. We welcome our returning guest and our friend of RHF, Greensboro, North Carolina native and licensed clinical social worker and therapist, Dr. Owen T. Guest. How are you doing today?
I'm fine. How are you doing?
All right. Should we call you Dr. Owen?
Either way, man.
So I'm glad to have you on our show. And Darren, I'm glad to have you back with us as well. You always have some exciting stuff.
It's great to hear your voice.
Yeah, so it's great to hear your voice. And that you always have some really exciting things. I'm really, we could go on for this topic for about at least an hour because with so much stuff we want to get into. Now, using technology and using that to treat people with personality disorders, PTSD, socialization issues, things like that. Tell us about that, Doctor.
Oh, yeah. This is something I hold near and dear to my heart. As a millennial, we grew up with technology, right? So being able to use it as a way to take people out of their dysfunction or disorder really helps because therapy can be a very traumatic experience. I know it sounds weird to some people listening to it, but if you're going to therapy all the time to get beat up or then a therapist telling you this is what's wrong with you, this is what's wrong with you, you can be very discouraged to come back to therapy. I know I would. But being able to use gaming, television shows as examples to take the person out and be able to see what it is that they're doing or the extent that they could do and be able to use the strategies that we use, coping skills, all that, you're actually practicing rather than always having to be reactive. And sometimes therapy is being taught to how to be reactive rather than be proactive.
So I know on your previous visit here, when you sat down with Ernesto, you talked about how when you were a kid, you used television to treat yourself. If I'm understanding that correctly, is that right?
Yeah, just to be able to identify. Yeah.
Okay. Tell us about that and how that got you started to do what you do. How did that trajectory start? It seems like that's when your ideas kind of became started to develop and how it kind of helped you create what you've created today.
This was the earliest memory that I had of this was I was in fourth grade and we had to take a trip to a camp for a week. And everybody was devastated as a kid because Power Rangers was really popular back then. And so I was that weird kid that was in the back of the bus talking to a parent saying that, the Black Ranger was the Green Ranger and he's going through this character development. He's like learning to be selfless because he was a real selfish Green Ranger. Now he's sacrificing himself for a Red Ranger. And they're like, what kind of kid are you? Talking about this in fourth grade. And so I always like seeing the growth of characters and seeing how that worked. And so as I matured and got into mental health, that was a lot of the case studies that we got. And I was able to catch on really fast just off of what I've learned watching television and being able to look deeper into things because regardless of whatever, any type of media, there's some type of realism there. There's some type of relatability there. And a lot of the characters when it came to anxiety connected to me as a young person with TGIF shows like Boy Meets World, Family Matters, those type of things, right? you see yourself, and you see yourself in a lot of the characters: Corey Matthews, Sean, Steve Urkel, Eddie Winslow, those type of characters where you said, oh, man, you know what? If I dated a girl, this is the type of girl that I wanted, but why did he react this way? And you being able to see those scenarios and being able to kind of project what it is that you wanted to be and could be, the mistakes that you could make, really helped me out. And I said, okay, cool. We were already experiencing some type of therapy using television and those family type shows then. And then being able to put that in conjunction with theory, I think is really entertaining for people to go back to those times and connect with that child, because that's what therapy is connecting with that inner child that's in you, and being able to do that and then connecting and then growing and seeing how you are projecting as an adult.
Well, it seems like you kind of connected and almost created a whole different discipline because you can. It seems like you can go into so many different ways with this. I'm thinking back now. You got me thinking back to my AP Psych class in high school, and thinking back to my pop culture classes in college. Because when you look at how television and communication and radio has shaped society and shaped behavior, and now you're using it to actually, in some ways, people argue, we don't have to go into that tangent, but in some ways, the mass communication can be a programming tool, with propaganda, for example. But then now using those same methods and tools to treat social behavior or social dysfunctions or personality disorders and behavioral issues and things like that, PTSD, trauma, family conflict, those types of things. So how do you use intense video games and television to work remotely with people? How does that work? And then after that, that's going to lead into a question I have for Darren. Okay.
In terms of intense video games, it's being able to, we use a term that's called gamification, right? And so it's being able to identify the mood, the setting, the characters, the relatability of the characters, and even sometimes the music of how a person reacts. And so sometimes I give out a questionnaire where a person fills that out, and then I develop a scale to see kind of where that game ranks them on the anxiety scale based off of the ACE questionnaire. And so using that person then is able, I give a task, for example. I say, okay, hey, I want you to spend an hour playing Call of Duty. I want to, before that, I want you to assess your stress level before, during, and after. And then we're going to see how you're responding to people before, like if somebody's at home and they're stressed out and they're probably more antsy towards their wife or girlfriend or husband, whatever you may take, and seeing that progression to afterwards. And so it's being able to see, okay, how are you benefiting from it? What stages and things are helping you kind of relax? Because gaming is a form of relaxation, regardless. Was it the people that you were talking to in your chat while you're playing Call of Duty, or playing a fighting game? Those type of things. And all this was based off of my dissertation that was used using Street Fighter as a way to understand anxiety and trauma based off the ACE questionnaire in a positive way. And those results show that people on every scale from 1 to 3, 1 being the least, 3 being the most, benefited positively from playing in an intense tournament using a fighting game, and the characters that they identified and their anxiety and their social anxiety went drastically down, no matter the form of trauma.
Wow. So I relate that a lot to what Darren does with the RHF Foundation and with Rick's Place, because you build obstacle courses where people are gaming in a physical way to do the same thing, reduce stress and connect with their family, doing it as a family activity, sometimes as a distraction.
Yeah, and that's where Dr. Guest and I met, was at Rick's Place. We were doing the Ninja Warrior course, and he was able to make it down. And as soon as that first meeting was over, we started collaborating on ways to take what he's doing is over the top. It's over the horizon. This is anyone that's listening right now, your eyebrows should be way up above your forehead, because what he's doing for our population, especially in the military, because we're north of 85% of the enlisted population are also gamers. So we're talking to the largest target audience that also experiences a lot of stress because of their profession. And so, what he's doing is so over the top, over the horizon. So my excitement is, and his as well, is how we can integrate more of the physical elements in creating physical experiences. So, we've got conversations going where we could take a classroom in a school and we could transform that classroom the way I go in and I transform television sets, like Games for Big Brother or, Biggest Loser, all the television shows, games that we've made over the years, and create a physical experience utilizing his psychological curriculum. So the work that the two of us are moving towards together, it's very exciting. Yeah,
I definitely agree. Because I made that connection almost because I haven't. I mean, the games you described, Dr. Owen, I'm familiar with, but when I first thought about it, I was thinking about games like Fortnite or something like on a VR headset, something like that. I remember even in the military, they were just starting to experiment with training people with video technology. Not quite, wouldn't call it a video game, but some of it seemed kind of old and outdated, like something that was made in the 70s, like horror movie show or something like that. But it was stuff that was, they were trying to use virtual things to teach you how to shoot. They teach you how to, go into a building, whatever, something like that. Infantry skills, things like that. Where do you see how do you see the technology developing, and what do you wish the technology could do that it doesn't do today?
Oh wow! Let me tell you this one thing, man. I had this one client where he was extremely socially awkward, suffered from severe PTSD, also had schizophrenia, and one of the things that I've used with him is using VR, a VR headset, to where it was during the pandemic, and we used that, and that's how a lot of people got to meet people, where there was like these little rooms where people could meet. They would have their own avatars, and it's learning how to talk to people was his biggest thing. I always tell people, if you have social anxiety, all social anxiety isn't the same. Some people's social anxiety is initiating conversation. Some people's social anxiety is just conversation in general. We pinpointed his was initiating conversation. If anybody could come up to him, that was the automatic, like a flick of a light bulb will say, hey, this person accepts me. I can say what I want to say in context, of course. Okay. Say what I want to say, and then open up. And him being able to practice that and being able to then move to people and then be able to recognize those people's voices once the lockdown was taken away, and meeting people in his community helped him tremendously. So VR is a very big thing, especially if you can connect with people that have those headsets, to be able to foster community, to move outside of the video game. I also believe that just with the technology that's going on, you can have these things at like sporting events, to where people who would not really speak to one another could just relax and watch a game or something like that, and really connect. We have a lot of gaming events around the world that people come out that would never really come out and socialize, but to be able to socialize with like-minded people and just things that they enjoy takes down the pressure a lot. And so I think being able to somehow get some type of physical exercises in places like that, as well as schools, as Darren mentioned, is the next step, because kids are going to school for video games now. Kids are going to college on full rides.
Yeah.
Video games. So what do we do with those kids, and making sure that they are acknowledged student athletes, but being able to give them some physical aspects, and then also being able to show that D1 football player, he can do the same thing that this person is doing video game wise, and being part of those courses as well. I think it's really good, especially the players that will be transitioning and not making pro teams, those type of things. Mental health helps with transition for everybody. So,
what do you think is the reason why? Well, first, let me ask you this question: is there evidence that shows that people or our generations are getting less and less social, physically or interaction-wise? Are we getting more socially dysfunctional?
Oh yeah, there actually, I can't put them out right there on the top of my head, but yeah, there are. You just look at just not even in America. You can look overseas where people are trying to get kids out just to play. We've had more initiatives just with national sports leagues trying to get kids out and play. I remember first time I saw the NFL play type thing, and that was people telling me, kids might get your behind out of the house and play. Like, you guys aren't doing that anymore. What's going on? And so being able to, I think, bridge the gap, being able to, like you said, having a imagine a Fortnite built course. I don't know what kid wouldn't want to do that.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, that would be interesting.
That would be amazing.
And that's interesting because when I think about the kids that I help raise, so they do what. Now this is the weird thing about it. So a boy and a girl, both about 5 years apart. However, they have like every video game that you can imagine. They have like a whole library room full of video games, and half of them they don't even play. But we bought them a VR headset. Both of them had VR headsets. They were excited about it at first, but they went back to the Xbox. The Xbox was the thing that the tower, the PC tower that they got, whatever. They loved that, and they kind of left the VR headsets alone. However, if we say take some water guns, let's go outside and shoot some water guns and water balloons, they're lined up and ready to go out and do whatever. If you talked about doing like a obstacle course, they're ready to go right then and there. Now, Darren, what is your take on that?
Nice. Yeah, there's a really nice blend of endorphins that are released when you're physically active, and it's always, it's funny because for me personally, like, I don't really like to work out, but every time I do, I think to myself, oh, this is great. I should do this more often. So, just kind of a little merry-go-round. But my point is that, that physical, experience of working out on top of, what Dr. Owen Guest is talking about with, the sense of connection, the sense of connectedness, the sense, a sense of the world, a sense of community that you can gain from gaming. Plus, at the end of the day, I'm an early adopter. I think that I think people that participate in esports are athletes. I believe it or not, and I've had lots of lively debates with colleagues about that. But, at the end of the day, blending the physical element with the esport piece, to me, is just something. Nobody's done it. It hasn't been done yet. I've written multiple proposals for live events to have esport, live esport events to have some kind of a physical challenge for the athletes as well. So it's definitely up and coming. And to me, there's no downside to getting after trying to blend the two experiences together.
Now, Dr. Owen, do you think that, and I think there's a lot of evidence that shows this, but I'm going to get your opinion on this directly as a doctor, as somebody who's worked in this field and is an expert. Has technology, when we're talking about cell phones, we're talking about Xboxes and the PlayStations and all this stuff, not singling any one gaming console out, but any like these gaming consoles, is that responsible for the kids that grew up in the late 90s and then on, the millennials and then on, like the younger millennials that came in the later part of the millennial generation and up till today? Or is that technology responsible for our social misfunctions or dysfunctions that we're having today?
Oh, that's a very loaded question. This is one of the questions where you see on Good Morning America, right? Mm-hmm. So I love that question. But I would say it's a mixed bag. We're living in such a great area because you're talking about latchkey kids. You're talking about kids that are coming from a greater amount of single parent households. and those parents not being able to help them be as active as possible. But that it is a contributing factor, but it also shows some positivity to it as well. A lot of those kids did not have the opportunity to do sports or weren't good enough, but then they were able to find community within the games. So I say it's a little bit of both. But to the negative side of things, like with anything, you can dive into it too much, and it become a detriment to you socially. I think one of the things that is a negative is going to be what I like to call the toxic streamer syndrome, where people are yelling, screaming, and cursing out each other for no reason, where my dad's generation would just laugh it off and have fun. Mm-hmm. But when we talk about the endorphins that are released with gaming, it's the same things you get from sports. The exact same endorphins, the exact same sense of community, all those things. So that's a positive point. But being able to regulate emotion and then making clickbait emotion look trendy, where, like I said, you're screaming, yelling, cursing, breaking TVs, all that stuff. It's the same thing where people would say, "Oh, is it bad for these hockey players to beat each other up?"
Right. Or watch, a violent TV show or something like that.
Exactly. Right. It's okay. This is what we come to expect, and I found that a lot of times when parents come to me and say, "My kid is acting like this. This is how I raised them," I say, "Okay, what is he or she watching on YouTube? What are they watching on Twitch?" And then I say, "Sit down with your kid and watch it." And they'll say, "Oh my God, that's exactly how my kid sounds."
Wow. And I can think of all these different memes and videos on YouTube where kids are like, it's going berserk because the dad shut off the electricity as a joke while he's playing, a video game. He's in Call of Duty doing something, whatever, and the console goes out and the kid's like going nuts. He's about to kill somebody. And there's like this hour, you can go hours and hours of watching these videos of the parents have uploaded. So part two of the question is, now these later millennials are parents themselves today. So what advice would you give them about better ways to socialize their kids and also to lead healthier lives and use technology in a positive way?
That question is near and dear to my heart. I have a 5-year-old. He turned 6 in January, and he loves video games. He's my kid, so he does. It's part of my thing. But it's being able to have a healthy amount of things, right? He has a good friend group, a good family orientation, and it's just being able to, you expose them and you tell them why you're playing the games, what this game means. And I think a lot of times we forget those things, and because when we were growing up, like I said, some people's parents weren't there. Mm-hmm. So you ask for Grand Theft Auto, they just said, "Okay, whatever, sounds like a car game."
Right. And then they're doing it for real. In Chicago, it's actually a real big problem. A lot of people were copying. Kids were copying from age 10, going out and stealing cars and didn't know what to do with the car. Just stole the car and wrecked it and dealing with all the consequences after that.
Yeah, I think it's. I don't want to be hyperbolic, but it's as just like the drug epidemic. Parents weren't educated when it comes to drugs. If you're not educated when it comes to video games, your kid's going to falter. If you don't have the proper support or try to establish that, bad things are going to happen. I've had parents that have had their kids in Pee Wee football and then they're drinking energy drinks. And they think just because it's cool or that's what the other kids are doing, they don't know how much that energy drink or is affecting their kids' anxiety or depression or ADHD. So I think everything is predicated on educating yourself and making sure you're exposed to what your child is doing and giving them a well-rounded lifestyle and support system.
Wow. So finally, because we have a couple minutes left, so you also basically are also pretty much telehealth for the most part. Is that right?
Yes.
So anybody around the country, anywhere around, technically around the world, could really use your services. They could reach out to you and they could, hire you as a therapist or as a social worker so that they can get help for themselves or for their kids or their family. How does that process work in the last 2 minutes that we have, and what's the cost? Is it expensive?
Oh, it's going to be based off of the insurance. Sometimes people even put me on as consultant, being able to do consultant work, those type of things. But cost is being able to talk about, and majority of the time when it comes to therapy, it's based off of your copay.
Now, how do people reach out to you? How do they find you?
I can give everybody my email. You can tell I'm a millennial because I've had this since high school, but I've been able to make it more professional. But you can email me at Owen Guess, that's OwenGuess, like Guess Who, at Hotmail, hotmail.com. And then when you're talking about my phone number, what we're talking about is, let me see this, hold on. My business phone number is going to be 919-228-9615. Again, that's 919-228-9615. I'm going to be putting up a practice website pretty soon where it's going to be called Neji Trev, LLC, NTV, not MTV, NTV. And we'll be putting ourselves out there even more, and hopefully we'll be able to help out more families and individuals.
We appreciate your time. Both of you guys give us some really great information. Love to have you back to kind of get into this. Like I said, we could probably go for another hour on this topic, and because it's and I really do believe this is really the precipice of groundbreaking field of study that hasn't really been that doesn't exist right now. I mean, as a field of study per se. Appreciate you guys, Darren and Dr. Owen. Thank you.
You as well, man. You as well, Sean. It's a pleasure.
This is America's Heroes Group. We'll be right back.